Hi guys, so real founder stories. Everybody thinks that building a tech startup is easy, that the other side knows exactly what to do, that it's easy to fundraise and it's easy to find a co-founder, hire an amazing team and crank it and kill it. The reality is far from that, as you all know, so therefore we've decided here at Tomorrow to show the real side of building a business. For those of you who don't know, Tomorrow is South London's largest workspace. You can see some of it here, the Coworking area. But enough about us. Today we're talking to the founders of Thrivemap. We have Chris and Mark. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Thrivemap is a cultural fit assessment tool that can be used across the gamut, from very young companies to very large established corporates. We're not going to be in pitching mode. Today we're going to talk about real founders. So thanks for coming and giving us your honest opinion. I've got a few questions there, but the best thing to do is that you start. What is it that you actually do? What does the business do?
Yeah, so Thrivemap is, as you said, a cultural fit assessment tool. Companies use it as part of the hiring process to ensure that they're making better people decisions, more accurate, fairer, and more consistent and objective hiring decisions. What it does is measures how people like to work, and you can use that data in order to predict whether an individual is going to thrive in a team environment or whether they may struggle.
Do people actually want to know whether their staff is going to be performing, or do they prefer not to know?
Well, I think people are very comfortable with the status quo. So we tend to make hiring decisions based purely on gut feeling. Objective data, a consistent measurement, can help a lot of companies who do see inconsistencies in the hiring process, and we see a strong demand and strong interest. And because we actually measure the team environment they're going into, it's been our experience that although companies talk about culture organisationally, no two teams work in the same way. So that insight that it provides on your team, how does this team differ from that team, and actually how can we use that information to improve the performance of the team, improve the management of the team, and improve the consistency of hiring people into those teams and ensuring that they thrive. We've seen some great results.
That's great tool. I haven't used it, but we should. So what were you doing before you set up Thrivemap?
Starting with me. Well, I'm kind of a veteran at the startup, so this is my number 6.
Wow.
So yeah, before that one I was with another tech startup, got to SEIS stage and is doing well now actually, and a whole series of other startups for the last 13 years, including my wife's, so I can definitely recommend thinking carefully about becoming your wife's number 2 when it comes to startup business. But and before that I was working in corporates for IT and so on. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, well, my background is actually in recruitment, recovering recruitment consultant, Francois, you'll be glad to know. But as part of that journey, I developed a concept, an idea for a recruitment marketplace, and Mark joined me in that venture, and then Thrivemap is a pivot about kind of 12 months in, 18 months in for that journey. We'd raised some money, we realised we weren't going to reach our commercial goals for Talent Rocket. And as part of that product we created one feature which is about measuring culture and environment fit, and that became the business we have today.
Right, okay. So first impressions, first co-founders, how did you find each other or meet? I think we've just heard that. What was your first impressions? So the good and the bad. The good is, why did you decide, well, that would be the right guy for me? And vice versa, what did you have massive doubts about? Because we all have doubts, nobody's perfect. So what was the first impressions that you had on each other? Start with you, Mark.
Again, I'm probably a little unusual because this is number 6 for me, and I've had successful exits in the past. I kind of knew what I was looking for. When you've had this many businesses, you kind of think, I'm tired of coming up with the ideas, and I'm really looking for someone who's got some of their own ideas, and then I can help them implement it. So I actually came to the table with a very clear idea, because I met lots of startup founders and looking for CTOs, and I said, look, and this is quite honest, I was saying, look, I'm looking for a salary. So this is unusual, I guess, in this world, but because of my history, I think a salary is okay, and I'm looking for a certain amount of capital gain over 3 years. So in terms of the business, I was agnostic. I could do anything as long as I could see the spark in that person, and then I would back them all the way to try and make that happen. And so that's what I was looking for, and that's when I found this.
Yeah, so I was actively looking for a co-founder CTO, not technical, and that's what I needed help with. First impressions of Mark were just incredibly intelligent and I kind of struck it lucky, I think I'd have to say. So I'd met quite a few other people before Mark and just never felt that they could take the business much further and really contribute, as well as deliver on the technical shortfallings that I had. So yeah, kind of my gut feel worked out well that time.
Great.
But actually, interestingly enough, we obviously use Thrivemap on our own team. We have very complementary skill sets. We actually think about things completely differently, which definitely brings challenges, but there's a high level of trust there. So provided you have that can be an advantage.
Nice try for avoiding the hard question. So what was the one thing that you disliked about each other upon the first encounter? I'm sure it's proven wrong, and the fear went away quickly, but what was the initial, not sure?
Do you know, I think it's a hard question to answer, because I think if I actually disliked something at that meeting, I wouldn't have gone into business. So, you don't want to be in the pressure cooker of a startup with someone that you start off with disliking. I mean, that would be crazy. One of the characteristics I noticed about Chris compared to other startup founders was he was quite quietly spoken, but he had a real passion for the product he was trying to develop. So, I mean, those two things were more than complementary. But I certainly wouldn't enter a startup with someone I already had something I hated about them.
No, but it can be benign. It doesn't have to be the whole person, but it can be one tiny thing.
Yeah, no, I'd say the only thing is that Chris was quieter than every other entrepreneur I'd met, and I had a bit of a beauty parade looking for the next startup.
Great. So where are you? Mr. Perfect.
Yeah, yeah, slightly too quiet. So I think there wasn't really a negative or something that I thought I wouldn't get on well with Mark about. His ability to logic you out of a decision that you thought you were going to make is one thing that is a positive in the long run, but at the time when he's outthought you to a position where you can't argue your own position that you had, that can feel frustrating at that moment in time. And I think quite quickly built that level of trust for him and I to have that kind of back and forth intellectually. So yeah,
that's great. So talk about real founder stories. So far, things have been going pretty well and growing, and the outlook is looking really rosy. I'm looking for real kind of historical nightmares, failures, stuff that hasn't worked out. Is there one in particular that struck you, saying, "My God, if we had the opportunity to do that again, we would never do this"? Was there one thing you'd do differently if you knew or could?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're in a good position. We've pivoted from Talent Rocket, which was a employer branding platform, to Thrivemap. So the whole of Talent Rocket could be viewed as a thing we did wrong, and Thrivemap being the correction of that mistake. But within the Talent Rocket era, I think the thing that we both agree that we could have done better was to get a much more solid understanding of the commercial outlook before we started solving the product idea. And this is what I recommend to everyone I speak to going forward is, whatever time you've spent trying to verify it's commercially viable, finding out the price you could charge and who would buy it, double it. Because that time is so much cheaper to spend than trying to build it and then correct it for the market. Yeah.
That's great advice.
Yeah, we've had a real roller coaster journey. I mean, to the point where we've deferred salaries because we're out of investment, but managed to then land more, and it's been massively up and down. But that's part of startup life. If you don't fail, you're not trying hard enough, really. We've made lots of failures, lots of mistakes, but we've so far, I mean, there's no wood to touch in this office. I don't think that's one of your rules. But I will go and touch the wood somehow. It's working out okay.
Conversely, sometimes you get lucky breaks. Has that happened? Obviously, the pivot was a self-made lucky break, and then you identified something which has huge potential, great market, people responded quickly, so therefore you pivoted to it. Okay. Anything else that it marks your memory or history, saying that was an amazing moment?
Yeah, I'd say one of the key moments for us in terms of luck was I was at an event, and again, part of startup life is putting yourself in a position to have serendipitous circumstances to arrive. And as I was leaving this event, it was all about culture, and obviously we had this idea of Talent Rocket, which then became Thrivemap. I was just walking out of the event and got chatting to someone, and we ended up walking to the Waterloo station. She happened to be an HR director for a huge multinational company called Belron, who owned the auto glass, car glass brands. And she was absolutely kind of really enthusiastic about what we were doing. So we ended up selling Talent Rocket, the product, to her. And then she said, we have this accelerator, corporate accelerator, you should apply for it with your new idea, Thrivemap. I then completely forgot about that. 3 days past the deadline, I then realised I'd missed the deadline and emailed her and said, "Oh, you did tell me to apply. I completely forgot about it. Will you accept an application? Can you get me in the back door?" She did that, and we ended up being selected out of a whole hundreds of startups for that program, and then ended up winning the program, which resulted in us getting investment from Belron. So they're now an investor in our business because they saw the value we could add to their company, and that all came, a whole chain of events came from me deciding to go to one event and having to leave at that time, and having to have the confidence to go and talk to her. So it's incredible what can happen after one small decision. So
that's amazing. Any hiring or people mistakes or patterns that you see, either that you've gone through yourself as founders, or that you've seen other founders around you or clients using your technology? Any classic mistakes that we can recommend to do or not to do?
Yeah.
Preferably not to do, and real life mistakes.
Where do we start?
How long?
Right. So I mean, you can start from the first bit of finding people. I mean, it's a rare breed of people that are willing to take the risk of working in a startup with all that uncertainty, but who can still bring in those skills and experiences that you need and accept the salary you're willing to pay them. I mean, that in itself narrows your pool down to the tiniest number. But then once you've got them in, I think the lesson that we learned is that you can try too hard to make it work. I think that we've started to get a lot better at sort of saying, okay, we've got some great people. Now this person, no matter how hard we try, isn't going to work out. Look, we were very upfront with them when they joined. We need to make very quick decisions to say, look, we haven't got time, I'm afraid, to do the work required to get you where we need to go, and part ways, because the timescales for a startup are so short. You don't have the 6 months to invest to work them around. You really need to make those quick decisions, and I think that's the lessons that we've learned is, make quick decisions.
Is it that rule of hire slowly, fire quickly?
Yeah.
I think it is a bit of a cliche, but I think there's truth to it. I think the other thing is a lot of people are interested in startups. So the pool is small, but you get a lot of people, because it's quite glamorized now, that kind of go, I want to work for a startup. Actually, loads of those people aren't very well suited to startups in terms of the way of it working, the way things happen in a startup. It's generally very fast paced. There's not a lot of process and structure in place, so you can get completely lost in that, and it's not necessarily well, everyone's not well suited to it, put it that way.
Yeah, one of the things we measure actually is how much stress there is on someone's life. I mean, you come into work and you do your job, but if there's stress on the outside of your life, then it's almost impossible for you to succeed. And startup life is itself a stress. So the uncertainty of how long you're going to get your pay for, I mean, if the company's not working out, and the success rates and whether you're going to get your bonuses and all those things, that adds another level of stress. And you have to be really upfront with people when they join that this is going to be the case, and make sure that they really genuinely can tolerate that in their lives. Otherwise, you're just starting from such a negative that that they're probably not going to work out.
Yeah, there's an insane amount of rejection that you get just in the start of life, from being rejected from investors, rejected by customers, because you don't have a brand or a business that everyone has heard of, or that everyone knows about. You have to start from this position of you're always fighting to win everything, and if you can't handle that, if you don't have the resilience to handle it, you're going to really struggle.
Very interesting. I mean, it's a big topic right now, the cost of startups on people's mental health and physical health and sleep and all that put together. Do you see more and more through the technology that you have, which assesses both cultural fits but also how people like to be managed and how they perform or respond better? Do you see any patterns? Is that on the increase, or the fact that we're starting to expose mental health as a direct consequence of overpressure? Is it something that has exposed and therefore is on the downturn? Is it being managed, or is mental health just booming?
Well, that's an interesting topic actually. We don't currently measure the state of mental health, and I think it's a fraught area. I know that stress is being measured now. There are some tools that allow measurement of stress within the workplace, but again, that's on borderline of what people would accept as an intrusion in their life in order to get the return. But one of the things that we're extending our platform out for is the physical and social environment. So in a way, there are a lot of people who rely heavily on that social environment of work, and if they don't have it, then their whole infrastructure, their whole social structure disappears. So one of the things we're thinking about measuring is does this workplace give you the social infrastructure that you expect and you need in your life? Because I think friends and colleagues are quite closely linked. So that's an interesting area for us.
That's great.
Yeah, I think the physical part as well, physical environment, you just get a feeling when you're in a space that's completely different. So, we've worked in different offices before. Some of them have been windowless. I mean, you could, it is a real danger there that we're kind of vitamin D deficiencies. But yeah, some of them have been windowless. And if you think of the impact that has on general productivity at work, obviously it depends on the kind of work that needs to be done. But there have definitely been kind of days where I've been in a physical environment for enough days in a row and felt really constrained and felt really unproductive because of that environment, versus other environments that are more light, that are more engaging, that kind of create more creativity in yourself, because you can actually look up and look around and you're not just staring straight at a wall. It does make a massive difference to how your general well-being at work.
Yeah, we spent 2 years in basements, so we are definitely talking from experience.
Okay, great. Last one. So now that you know the hardship, the failures, the stuff that you maybe were surprised and pleasantly surprised, and the lucky breaks, if you had all that data before you started, would you still think, yeah, it's worth going, I'm going to go after that opportunity, or would you have completely recalibrated and possibly done something else?
Well, my answer is I would have done exactly the same thing, because I already had that. I did have that information and I still made this choice. So there must be something wrong with me, because I keep coming back. It's always like once you've started, you can't think of any other way of doing work. But yeah, so for me, I would have definitely...
No change.
Yeah.
I think it's been an interesting journey. So you've got to think about where you were at the point in your life where you decided to make the decision to go and start a business. There's no regrets in having started the business. I think the bigger regret would be, what if I hadn't have done that? And you'd always regret the fact that you didn't have the courage to go and do it. But life does change. So since we started the business, I've got an 8-month-old boy now. So my life and what I need from life is different from where it was when we started the business. I still wouldn't have changed what's happened. Still would have gone ahead with it. I'm still absolutely delighted. It's just you do, as a person, external factors do influence what you want out of work and life. So yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for that. This is Real Founder Stories here at Tomorrow. I think we've heard a lot. I'm not going to do an all summary. You'll see the summary in the text. But all I can see from this short interview is that there's a huge amount of going forward, going through the cycles. There's no easy, quick wins. And it's all about the people. So hopefully we can put Thrivemap to use. I'm definitely going to use it now. See you soon. This is Chris and Mark at Thrivemap.